Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be working on a design based off of this UVDTF. I will have all of the items that I'm using listed and linked below in the description box, as well as discount codes for you guys. Let's go ahead and get this tutorial started. Starting off, I'm going to take that UVDTF and I'm going to just roughly measure what space that's going to take up on the top half of my tumbler, and then I'm going to create a straight horizontal line halfway down the tumbler, and I'm going to use some sort of tape or something. If you want to use a transfer tape like I do, I just use this when I have big blocks or big chunks of tumbler that I have to block off because I hate this transfer tape and I just don't want to throw it away. So I just use it for that purpose. So from there, we're going to spray paint the bottom half of this in a light pink. This is Sweet Pea from Rust-Oleum. And then for the purposes of this video and time constraints, I'm just using the UV resin for the top and bottom half glitters to adhere them. The rest of this tutorial is done in either fast set or artist cure resin. I just wanted to get this tutorial out in time for the holiday season before it got too late and we started moving on to other projects. So for the bottom, we're going to use Bunny Suit from Chase Ray Creations. When I glitter that, I'm going to take some sort of paper or parchment paper, something to pat that glitter down so it's not poking out and you're not going to have sharp pokey bits of epoxy. It's just going to help lessen the amounts of epoxy that you're going to need to get a smooth surface on your tumbler. Your tumbler won't be as heavy. So if you don't do that, I would maybe just make it a habit. It makes your life a lot easier being a little bit proactive. And then once that's patted down, we're going to immediately remove either that transfer tape or painter's tape, and then we'll go ahead and put this under the UV light. If you are using UV resin, make sure you're removing all of your tapes before you put that under that light, otherwise your tape's going to stick to it. And then from there, once that's dry, I'm going to do UV resin on the top half as well. I just kind of eyeball it. I don't tape anything off. If you're not as confident putting UV resin right up to that pink line, I would recommend putting some tape on the pink section just to make sure you don't have any cross-contamination or anything like that. But if you're comfortable with it, go ahead and just freehand it. And then we're going to use Carnation from Chase Ray Creation as well. It's that same kind of chunky opal base, so it blends in really well with the design. Again, patting that down so we don't have any chunky bits. And then we're going to put that under the UV light and cure it, and we'll move on to our next steps. Once that UV resin has completely dried, I put 2 coats of Krylon Triple Thick spray on this glitter just to make sure we didn't have any glitter migrating in spaces where we didn't want them. This is going to be a fast set from Flynn Sisters supply shop. I will have a discount code for you guys listed and linked below. And if you didn't know, she does have a new formula of resin. This was not that. I will show videos in the future of that, and I did show one last week as well. But that is available as well as the original formula. So if you have a preference, the old formula is available until it's sold out. After that first coat of epoxy was cured, I did sand the bottom edge as well as Dremel the top rim to expose a fine line of stainless steel along there and buffed out any pokey bits. Put a second layer of Artist Cure resin on there, let that cure, and then I decided at that point it was smooth enough to apply this UVDTF. Once the UVDTF was in place, I went to Cricut Design Space and I pulled up the first image that they had available under checker pattern, and I just used that. At this point, we need to measure for the circumference of the tumbler to create our checkered pattern. You do not want to measure this on a stainless base because it doesn't account for the extra width that those coats of epoxy are going to create. So don't prematurely measure that. Do that right before you're ready to put the coats on. Like, take your cup off the turner, measure it, and then immediately put the checkers on. Also, pro tip, the checker pattern in Design Space, it starts with 2 checkers and ends with 2 checkers. So it doesn't work to wrap it around completely because then you'll have 2 checkers meeting up at the same seam with another 2 checkers. So make sure you go in and you'll have to either contour or edit that somehow, remove one of those layers or end, I don't even know, the end piece basically. You need to remove the two checkers so you've got it seamlessly meeting two checkers against one checker, so you can't tell where it starts and ends. In addition to that little tidbit of information, you will also want to be mindful of the height of your checker pattern, because Cricut naturally, when you adjust the width, it also adjusts the height, so you don't have kind of a mangled, weird looking design that you're working with. You will have to go in and manually adjust it if you're working on a bigger tumbler. For this one, because it was such a small space, the squares weren't actually square because I had such a small space on the bottom to work with. They were like an inch wide, but they were like super short. So it was more like a rectangle shape. So what I did to kind of offset that, I just duplicated the image. So it was an extra long set of checkers, and then I shortened it just a little bit, and you couldn't tell at all that they're not true squares. I think they are true squares, but you can't tell at all that it's adjusted any little bit. My seams didn't meet up perfectly when I got to the end. I must have gotten off kilter just a little bit somewhere along the process. So what I'm going to do is just chop off that little last check there, and I'm going to manually place that in between, making sure that everything still lines up, that the check is straight, that all the four corners are touching, and then lay that down, and you can't even tell the difference. So we kind of saved ourselves there. We didn't have to recut or reapply anything. And then we're going to remove that transfer tape. If you're using some sort of a holographic like I am, just be careful you're not removing it too quickly. It does seem to pull up a lot easier than a normal non-holographic vinyl. I don't know why it doesn't stick as well to the cup, but it seems to easily be pulled up by that transfer tape. So just be mindful of that. And then we're going to do the little lines here on the top and bottom to separate the two sections of the tumbler. This was just one of the pre-cut stripes that I had cut out in my little pile that I have, and it's black and it's 11.5 width by 0.05 in height. I'm just going to put that on the top and bottom of the checkers. While I was doing the striping, I wasn't really happy with the design. I felt like this whole back side of the tumbler was just so bare. So I went in search of an SVG, and I found this one. It's in kind of a retro font, and I just used that pink holographic vinyl as an offset on the base, and then I used black as the top portion of the decal that tied in the pink vinyl as well as those black stripes that we put on there. I believe I cut this out at like 3.25 or maybe 3.5 inches. It was probably 3.25. That sounds a little bit too big at 3.5 inches because it's such a small tumbler. But I'm just going to be careful to lay this down. I cut it into two separate sections, and sorry about my big head being in the way. The stars were really small, and I am very quickly aging at 34 years old, so my eyes are not what they used to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just put the transfer tape on there, and then there's a couple of the stars that went rogue. I don't know where they went. They probably flung off somewhere into space. But once I got this on here, I actually liked how it looked with some of the stars pink and then some of the stars with a pink and black offset. So I just kind of went with it. I actually cut out a second decal, and I took some of the stars from that and I added them on here, but I still left a handful of them as pink stars. It just gave it some dimension. You don't really notice it passing by, but I love how it looks when you look up close. Again, we're going to use the hinge method to apply this like usual. If you've watched my channel, you know that I will do everything on this planet except measure a stinking decal placement. I eyeball everything, and I've gotten so good at just like sticking it on with my best guesstimate, and it works out most of the time. So you probably won't see many tape measures on this channel. So from there, I'm going to put this on my turner. I did put a coat of polycrylic on the vinyl sections. There was a lot of vinyl work and a lot of little stuff that could lift up under the epoxy. I didn't want to have to go back and sand anything off or fix it. So I put that polycrylic on there. I let that dry until it was dry to the touch. And then this just needed one final coat of epoxy to finish it off and cover all of the vinyl work. Because we did so much prep work when we glittered it and we patted everything down nice and flat, we have 3 coats of epoxy total on this and minimal sanding. So that just goes to show if you do your prep work, it really helps you out in the end. You don't have to do as much sanding, which I know we all despise. It makes a mess and it takes forever and your arm falls off. So once we get that last coat of Flynn Sisters Artist Cure resin on there, we're going to torch that and then let that sit for about 24 hours until our cup is ready to be handled and washed and packed up to be shipped out. That's it for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I do have a handful of Christmas and holiday themed tutorials filmed and basically ready to go. I don't have enough weekends before Christmas comes, so I'm going to have to get creative with that. I'm probably going to have to put 2 out in 1 week just to make sure that I'm not too late on the designs. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not already. Hit the bell button for notifications on future tutorials, and I will see you guys in the next video.